Today we are going to discuss a very interesting and a very common and important finding in pediatric endocrinology. We all know that 21 hydroxylase deficiency is one of the most severe forms of disorders which we as pediatric endocrinologists encounter, and often the reflex is that as soon as you diagnose somebody as 21 hydroxylase, you start them on hydrocortisone and fludrocortisone, which is genuine because it may take time to make a diagnosis. But what we need to understand is that because these conditions are lifelong, even though they are life threatening, so starting steroids may be appropriate, but because they are lifelong, we need to be careful in terms of establishing the right diagnosis. So you all can go and have a look at our website learning.growsociety.in, which will highlight a number of these resources. You can have a look at our master courses which are available on the website. There is also a specific 3-year course for postgraduates which is available, and our book is available as well as the apps on the iOS and the Android store. We all know that the first process of steroidogenesis starts from the conversion of 7-dehydrocholesterol to cholesterol under the influence of DHC7 reductase, and this is the initial process. And cholesterol is the backbone of all the steroids that we talk about. From cholesterol, we can then store it in the form of a cholesterol sulfate, a process which requires basically a esterase as well as a phosphatase, which will convert it into a sulfation process. And from there, we start producing the hormones. The first most important compound is actually produced under the influence of 3 major enzymes: side chain cleavage, STAR, which is not really an enzyme. It is basically a transporter which pushes cholesterol into the mitochondria, and very importantly, we'll get pregnenolone, which will be one of the first important compound which happens. From pregnenolone, we have got different activities which happen, and 17-hydroxylase lyase is the key branch point, so to speak, as far as steroid synthesis is concerned. Now, 17-hydroxylase and lyase are part of the same enzyme. If you have got no 17-hydroxylase, no 17-lyase, which is basically there in zona glomerulosa, your end product will be aldosterone. If you have got 17-hydroxylase but no lyase, the end product will be cortisol. And if you have got both 17-hydroxylase and lyase, the end product will be DHEA. So 17-hydroxylase and lyase will produce DHEA, which is immediately sulfated. And this sulfation will actually prevent from the hyperandrogenic effect which is there. And this DHEAS and this whole process requires an enzyme known as PAP-SS2, the deficiency of which will cause excess amount of free DHEA, which will cause hyperandrogenism. So we'll discuss about that briefly. There is also a conversion of these compounds peripherally, and this is important to understand that the hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase have multiple isoforms. The hydroxylases do not have isoforms, but HSDs have isoform. And one of our cases will highlight why this is important. So this 3-beta-HSD, which is available only as far as our own steroidogenic pathway is concerned, but it is also available externally in the liver, in the placenta, in different regions. And this will convert some of these precursors into steroid hormones, which will happen. And that can cause confusion in certain situations like this. So in 3-beta-HSD deficiency, you will have lots of delta 5 precursors which are circulating, but some of them will be converted into delta 4. Your testosterone levels will be slightly high for a XX individual causing DSD, but they will be very low for a XY individual, so causing DSD in both genders. So as we'll discuss, the 3-beta-HSD deficiency will cause abnormalities of both XX as well as XY DSD. Now, we all know that we can also have 17-beta-HSD, which will then convert this into testosterone, and this activity is also there in the lipid factors from there. And from there, we can aromatize to produce estradiol, and this estradiol is the final mediator of growth plate maturation and fusion, which happens in this perspective. Now, as discussed, the adipocytes have got a number of these enzymes. They include aromatase, 17-beta-HSD, and 11-beta-HSD. So whatever you are producing from the adrenals can be converted in the adipocytes into testosterone, into estrogen, as well as into cortisol as well, because it has got multiple activities. So all these peripheral activity becomes important. Now, once you have got 17-hydroxylase, the second important thing, as I discussed, is the 3-beta-HSD, and the combination thereon, you will then start producing your major cortisol as well as aldosterone. So 17-hydroxylase, no lyase, but 17-OH, but 3-beta-HSD, then your 21-hydroxylase will come up and you will start producing the enzymes and activity from there, and you will start producing cortisol. So cortisol production from the zona fasciculata will require 17-hydroxylase, but no lyase. So conditions in which you have a 17-hydroxylase deficiency, you will basically have cortisol deficiency with excess of aldosterone. And this is an important consideration to consider. And on that other hand side, this cortisol is continuously being inactivated to cortisone by 11-beta-HSD2, particularly in the mineralocorticoid responsive tissue, because cortisol and aldosterone both have got equal affinity. And in this perspective, if you have got too much level of cortisol, which is 1,000 times more as compared to the level of aldosterone, you will overwhelm the capacity, and this 11-beta-HSD2 really inactivates the excess cortisol, shielding the mineralocorticoid receptor from the effect of cortisol. And there is, of course, the hexose pathway which helps that, and this causes apparent cortisol deficiency, which we'll discuss subsequently sometime later. Now, the third major pathway in which you have got no 17-hydroxylase, no lyase, this is zona glomerulosa, and there you will have the production of aldosterone which will happen. So this is the overview as far as steroidogenesis is concerned, and based on that it becomes very easy to identify the abnormalities as and when, where they will happen. Now there are other factors which are also important, and most of them are the electron donors. So the whole process is all oxidation, reduction, and for that electron donors become important, and POR is particularly important. This P450 oxidoreductase basically is important for three major enzyme activity. It is involved for 17-hydroxylase, it is involved for 21-hydroxylase and aromatase. So POR deficiency will mimic the problems faced by 17, which is basically under-virilization and hypertension, 21, which is salt wasting with virilization, and aromatase, which is virilization. So manifestation will be variable. Your salt wasting may not be that severe, but you may have XX and XY DSD again. So second condition to cause both DSD in XX and XY after, as we had discussed earlier with regards to 3-beta-HSD, would be this POR in this perspective. Now, if we discuss all that, why we discuss that, so that it becomes very easy to really go through the different causes from that perspective. So if we start the first defect, that would be the DHC7. Now, this defect theoretically should result in complete abolition of steroidogenesis, but often because there is some production of cholesterol happening somewhere else, and there may be some extra, so that's why it doesn't cause a complete deficiency. The effect of this is known as Smith-Lemeli-Optis syndrome, which usually presents with milder salt wasting and mainly in terms of XY-DSD. Now, what you need to understand is that XY-DSD is an act of, Proteek? DSD is act of omission. So if you are not producing testosterone, you will have a XY-DSD. While XX-DSD is an act of commission. You have to produce extra testosterone to cause XX-DSD. So when you're classifying this whole CAH, just remember what is happening to the mineralocorticoid, what is happening to the androgen, and you will know that. So in this perspective, everything is gone. So of course, you will basically have a XY-DSD. If it's 0, it is XY-DSD, and it will cause delayed puberty in girls. But the normal appearance will be there at birth. So classic SLO will present with XY-DSD and salt wasting. Now you can have another problem, which is in the sulfation process. So here what is happening is that all your money is deposited in the bank, but you cannot take it out because all is in the form of sulfate. You can't take it out. So you will effectively have what is known as Wolman syndrome, in which you'll have huge adrenals, lot of fat there, but you can't use it. So this is again a form of a proximal defect, but there will be many more manifestations. Now, how do you identify these two? Cyan, SLO in Woolman? Yes. So lipid profile will give you a very, very good clue immediately. And in our 1 hour cases, we had done the lipid profile to evaluate for these conditions. So these are very easy to identify clinically in that. If we go from there, we have got the defect in the side chain cleavage and star. Again, they will behave in a similar fashion as compared to the other defects. But what will happen in this setting is that you will have huge adrenals, because adrenals are trying to produce a greater amount of steroids, which you are not able to, so they become big. And this is therefore known as lipoid hyperplasia. So there's a lot of lipid there. SLO, there is no cholesterol, so how will you have lipids? Woolman, of course, you will have too much of sulfated product, which will cause calcification. So this adrenal morphology will also give you a clue as to where you are heading. So if you have a very proximal defect, which is lipoid hyperplasia, it will again cause same picture, XYDSD and salt wasting. Let's go down further. You have a problem in the 17-hydroxylase. So 17-hydroxylase, Naveen, what is the problem that you will see?
17-hydroxylase is cause an XYDSD with hypertension and delayed puberty and hypertension in case of females.
Yeah. So 17-hydroxylase, basically what you need to understand is that your cortisol is gone, your androgen is gone, but your mineralocorticoid is high. So you will have hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, along with actor formation, which will cause basically a XYDSD at birth. So 17-hydroxylase will cause hypertension and XYDSD. 3-beta-HSD sign, what do you think?
The 3-beta-HSD, all 3 levels will be decreased. So there will be salt wasting, but it will be variable. And so in XY, in a male, it will be under-virilization, while in a female, it will be virilization.
So as against hydroxylases, which do not have isoforms, we discussed that beta-HSDs have isoforms. So 3-beta-HSD peripheral activity will be there, which will partially compensate. So maybe the salt wasting will not be very extreme as 21-hydroxylase, but you will have DSD both in XX as well as in XY. What will happen to their 17-OHP levels, Prateek?
It will be raised because of peripheral.
How raised?
Mildly raised, not so high.
Yeah. So out of the condition that we discussed till now, SLO, Woolman syndrome, side chain cleavage, star, or 17-hydroxylase. Everywhere 17-OHP will be low. But this is the first condition, 3-beta-HSD, where it will be mildly elevated. So mildly means maybe around 30 to 100 would be the sort of levels that we are talking about. So mildly elevated 17-OHP levels may happen here, and this may cause confusion as happened in one of our cases. So this is all a background we are trying to create in that situation. Now, the other problem, of course, here, this is the classical picture. This is what we don't want you to diagnose in all our cases that we're discussing today, but this is the most common 21-hydroxylase deficiency. The problem would be in Prateek.
For both will have salt wasting. If it is a salt wasting, XX will come with virilization, XY will come with precocious puberty.
So you have got androgen excess and mineralocorticoid deficiency. Cortisol deficiency is universal amongst all of them. So 21-hydroxylase will have salt wasting and XX-DSD, and of course precocious puberty if we talk about a bit later from there. Now if we talk about 11-hydroxylase, Naveen, 11 will cause?
Opposite of something. It will cause an XX-DSD with hypertension, and males it will cause a precocious puberty with hypertension.
So high androgen and low amount of basically mineralocorticoids are also high because your precursors are high. So DOC is going to act on the mineralocorticoid receptor. Why does DOC work on the mineralocorticoid receptor, cyan, and not cortisol?
So because it isn't reactivated by the 11-beta.
So actually, if you put DOC, cortisol, and aldosterone in the lab and compare their activity on the mineralocorticoid receptor, DOC will be the lowest. But because it is not inactivated by 11-beta-HSD, it has got a good mineralocorticoid activity, which is there in that perspective. So 11-hydroxylase will present to us basically with XX-DSD along with hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis. But is that the neonatal presentation, Prateek, for 11?
The requirement of mineralocorticoid is much higher, so it will actually have salt wasting in it.
So very interestingly, in the newborn period, you may have mild salt wasting, because if you look at the aldosterone graph, it is highest in the first 2 weeks and comes down like this. So in that 2-week period, this level of DOC may not be sufficient to avoid salt wasting crisis. So there will be a mild crisis, and then they will go back in terms of a hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, and this will be relevant from one of the cases that we discussed in that. So don't get confused. If you have mildly elevated, mild salt wasting, which is now shifting towards hypertension, think of 11, not 21 in that regard. What will happen to 17 OHP level sign in this setting?
So it will be raised.
17 OHP will be raised, but not to a huge extent. So now if I ask Prateek, what are the conditions which have mildly elevated 17 OHP levels?
Mildly elevated level hydroxylase deficiency, beta hydroxylase 17 lies might have.
Anything
POR
else?
will also-
POR. So these will be there. What are the non-CAH conditions in which 17 OHP may be high? Naveen. False positive reports of 17 OHP. So stress, of course, stress, if you are producing too much cortisol, the levels will be high. If it is prematurity, it will cause that. These are the two conditions. And one thing to remember is that you have got a lot of fetal adrenal working at this time. And fetal adrenal produces a huge number of steroids, and most of them are sulfated. Because your sulfonyl transferase is very active in the fetal adrenal. So if you do not do an extracted sample, your 17 OHP may be falsely high. So this is another consideration to be thought of, and which will become relevant when we discuss our cases today again in that perspective. Now, if we move forward, we can have, these are isolated defects. This is not really a CAH, because when we say CAH, the fundamental thing is cortisol deficiency. Cortisol deficiency, ACTH excess, large adrenal. This is the triad for CAH. Now, this is a steroidogenic defect of 11 aldosterone synthase. Because cortisol is normal, the adrenal will not be enlarged. So this condition will present basically with salt wasting. Similarly, if you have a 17 beta HSG deficiency, this will mainly cause the effect on androgen deficiency with no effect on cortisol and other aspects, and adrenal size will be normal. If you have a aromatase deficiency, this is again not a CAH, you will have, what will happen in that setting, Sayan?
So, aromatase deficiency. So, as it is aromatase deficiency, there will be excess androgen levels during the neonatal, during the intrauterine phase. So, the mother will have features of virilization. The child will XX individual will present with virilization, and again will complain with delayed puberty.
So simple is that your androgen to estrogen production is defective. So before the block, androgen will be high. After the block, estrogen will be low. Because your androgen is high, that's why you present as DSD at birth and delayed puberty later on. This again will be relevant in one of our cases. So again, this understanding is important. So aromatase causes XX DSD. If we talk about PAP-SS2, this is basically high DHEA. It is more of a differential of PCOS. It doesn't really present in the congenital phase. Very important to remember is, again, XO6-phosphate is again cortisol deficiency, apparent rare case in that perspective. 11 beta HSD, again interesting, not really a CAH. You will have lesser conversion of cortisol to cortisone, causing hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, which is responsive to spironolactone. So this will be apparent mineralocorticoid excess. So this will be that situation. And finally, you will have a problem of POR, which is a confusing state, which will cause effect of 3 hormones, aromatase, 21-hydroxylase, and 17-hydroxylase. So it can again present to us with a salt loss, which is milder, and XX and XY-DSD. So if you now look at the whole busy slide, it will really tell you the entire pathophysiology of CAH, and this will be something which can really help us guide in terms of diagnosis. So now if we make it simpler, we have discussed about all the basics. All you have to look at mineralocorticoid and androgens. So mineralocorticoid deficiency, now androgen can either be high, low, or normal. So if you have androgen deficiency and mineralocorticoid deficiency, everything low, presenting with salt wasting and XY-DSD, you're talking about proximal defects. like star, HCC, 3-beta-HSD, POR. You can add SLO also into that picture. Then if you talk about high androgens but low mineralocorticoid, which means XX-DSD with salt wasting, you're talking mainly 21 hydroxylase deficiency, but milder will be 3-beta-HSD with POR. And finally, if you talk about just mineralocorticoid deficiency, that is the aldosterone synthase defect, which is not really a CAH. Now, if you go into a normal mineralocorticoid with an androgen which is low, then you're not talking about CAH, you're talking about 17-beta-HSD basically, and if you talk about excess, which is aromatase. Finally, too much mineralocorticoid with a low amount of androgen is 17-hydroxylase, XY-DSD with hypertension. If you talk about XX, that will be 11-hydroxylase, which is XX-DSD with hypertension. And finally, if it's normal, it is 11-beta-HSD, which is the upper end mineralocorticoid excess. So if you think in terms of CH, think whether your androgens are low or high, your aldosterone or your mineralocorticoid is low or high, you can classify that. And this would be used many times when we talk about our cases today, because that will make it much easier in that perspective. So now if we talk about CAH with mineralocorticoid deficiency, we have got star SCC, which will cause delayed puberty. So any actor formation will cause delayed puberty in girls, and XY-DSD in boys, and low levels of all metabolites. 3-beta-HSD, again DSD in both boys and girls, salt wasting, and you will have very high level of DHEA and the delta 5 compounds. 17-hydroxy progesterone may be mildly elevated. 21-hydroxylase deficiency DSD in girls, precocious puberty in boys, 17-OHP will be very, very high in that perspective. 11-aldosterone synthase, no effect on androgens. It is basically going to cause low aldosterone and precursors in that setting. And POR, as discussed, can cause DSD in both boys and girls. And along with that, you will have high DOC and 17-OHP levels. So again, this is the third non-21 hydroxylase deficiency after 3-beta and 11, which can cause slightly high levels as far as 17-OHP is concerned. Now, CAH with mineralocorticoid excess, we'll have 11-hydroxylase, in which you will have a DSD, XX-DSD in girls, early puberty in boys, 17-hydroxylase, which will cause basically XY-DSD and delayed puberty in girls, along with hypertension, hypokalemic alkalosis, and AME, which is just hypertension, early onset hypokalemic alkalosis, which will be there. CAH with normal mineralocorticoid, we discussed aromatase deficiency causing XX-DSD and delayed puberty, which may happen basically with 17-beta-HSD in girls, but it will cause a severe XY-DSD in boys. So this is a very simplistic way of comparing the whole phenomena of CAH. So when do we suspect CAH? Of course, if you have anybody with DSD, especially if it is non-palpable gonads, CAH becomes important. If there is peripheral precocious puberty in boys who have a small testis and precocious puberty, delayed puberty, especially in girls, especially with hypertension. If you have salt wasting, hyponatremia, hyperkalemia, metabolic acidosis, failure to thrive, if you have hypertension, think of the other way around, and of course, differential for hyperandrogenism, non-classical CAH, POR, aromatase deficiency, non-classical avalent hydroxylase, they will all present like a differential of PCOS in that perspective. Now, all of us have been told that when you have any of these, do a 17-OHP level. But we need to understand how to interpret these levels. So if 17-OHP is less than 300 nanogram per DL, less than 3 nanogram per ml, which may be often given in your units, don't think about CAH. If it's more than 3500, it is more like 21 hydroxylase. You're pretty much sure. Now, whether it is classical, salt wasting, simple virilizing, or non-classical is a different thing that will depend upon your clinical picture. If it's 300 to 1200, you can have some variants which are likely. And then you look at 11 hydroxylase, you do 11 DOC. For 3-beta-HSD, you do 17 hydroxypregnenolone. For POR, you do a urinary metabolite, which will give you a clue to diagnosis in that perspective. If it's between 1200 to 3500, it's better to do a ACTS test to make a diagnosis. So this is a rough criteria. Different people have some different criteria, but usually what we're trying to say is that the diagnosis, especially in the classical form, is never in doubt. If you properly look at 17 OHP, you will be able to make a diagnosis.
4-month-old male child born to third-degree consanguineous parents. And this child came to us, the parents brought the child with the history of not gaining adequate weight and poor feeding. Now, this child had a significant history. His child was normal till the 21st day of life, and around that time, around 3 weeks of life, he was noted to have lethargy, poor feeding, and vomiting. So this child was taken to the hospital and it became very severe and required ventilatory support, but then survived and was discharged from there. Now, there was no history of any seizures or polyuria during that time. There was no history of any decreased urine output or blood in urine. There was no history of any infant deaths, infertility, or ambiguogenitalia in family. Now, I've asked all this because to rule out any history of salt wasting or any CH, decreased urine output, blood in urine, because to rule out any pseudo-hypoaldosteronism like obstruction, like which I will explain later why we have asked this. It is not.
What other condition can cause blood in urine a picture like CH?
PHA only.
Anything else?
Urinary obstruction and
Renal thrombosis.
RVT. Achha, that.
So gross hematuria, RVT can cause a secondary adrenal hemorrhage and cause a similar
picture like CH.
So if we go back to what you said, the third week presentation,
yes,
with an apparently normal male who suddenly becomes sick. This is what we always say, a textbook picture of a 21-hydroxylase deficiency, salt wasting happening between 2 to 3 weeks, and there was a definite history of pigmentation,
yes,
which the mother gave that the child was becoming pigmented over time. So if we go historically, a child doing not that bad, suddenly at 3 weeks of life, not gaining weight.
Yes,
that was
not
the second thing, which is, this is a classical picture. The failure to thrive along with lethargy, weakness, shock, and pigmentation. Clearly, adrenal insufficiency will be the first possibility that you will think of. Now, within the context of adrenal insufficiency in a male who apparently has a normal genitalia, what are the conditions that you will think of?
First is 21-hydroxylase deficiency. Yeah. 11 beta in male can initially time, 3 beta HSD.
11 beta, 11 hydroxylase.
11 hydroxylase deficiency.
Okay. 3 beta.
3 beta.
3 beta will cause
might have DLD.
And
so all the proximal defect.
So don't you think beyond this strategic pathway? So AHC. So again, you're talking about basically adrenal insufficiency. So this is the differential plus hemorrhage.
Yes.
So if it is an acute phenomenon, but what is going against hemorrhage in this case? Pigmentation. Because pigmentation cannot happen in a day. So it is a chronic process going on. So this means it's a subacute or whatever. It's a adrenal insufficiency which is there and it comes as a crisis now. This is what it is presenting to us. Yeah. Carry forward.
So on examination, the vitals were stable. As sir mentioned, there was hyperpigmentation and there was no syndactyly or any facial dysmorphisms to rule out the proximal defect of Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome. Anthropometry showed that yes, the child had not gained proper weight. Birth weight was 3 kg, which had improved to only 5.35 kg. The head circumference was slightly low at 35.5 centimeters. Genital examination showed that the testes were descended. They were bilaterally 2 ml, no ambiguity, but one peculiar sign was there that the SPL was slightly towards the higher side of 4.4 centimeters.
Which may mean that there is an androgen excess, which
yes,
may also mean, as we will discuss later on, some other sign as well.
Yeah.
Carry forward.
So these are the investigations done outside. So on day 21, which was done in the institute, there was only one report showing salt wasting like hyponatremia with hyperkalemia, but subsequent all electrolyte reports were normal, which I have not included here. Now one very
peculiar. He was sick enough to be ventilated.
Yes, he was sick enough. The cortisol report somehow came 1700, which we are not sure of.
Maybe that they might have given hydrocort
yes,
before taking this
probably
happen, because suddenly it may be increased because of that.
17 OHP, however, was not done initially during that time, and CRP was raised as an infection. Now, considering only electrolyte disturbance with normal cortisol, he was probably started on just fluoric or not on hydrazone. We do not know what has happened because no documentation is there.
So again, this is a typical picture that we as the team which is seeing a referring patient like that has to face, because we are not clear what really happened at that time, whether in the first visit they were given hydrocort. Now, I would be really amazed that somebody would not have given hydrocort, to somebody who had pigmented,
Yes.
who had hyponatremia, hyperkalemia, on ventilator, they would definitely have given hydrocortisone. There's no confusion about that. And because of that, that's why probably the cortisol level was very high. Now, what's a bit strange is that why was he started only on fluticort? The reason for that is that maybe they would have found that this cortisol level was that high. So they will say, okay, cortisol is very high. This child has an isolated RAS defect. And that's why let's give fluticort. There is no role of giving hydrocort. Now, if you just look at this report, Prateek,
Yes, sir.
does it look like a RAS defect? Just a RAS defect, isolated. Sodium of 107, potassium of 8.4.
So sodium will not be so low at a RAS defect.
Exactly. So if you have isolated RAS defect, the problem is more of potassium. The sodium does not go below 120, 115 maximum, 107 is unheard of because your cortisol is normal. And this cortisol is inhibiting your AVP. Anybody to have persistent hyponatremia, you need to have a high AVP, whether it is appropriate or inappropriate. So when we say SIADH like picture, because if you have cortisol deficiency, the AVP becomes high and that's why your sodium goes down. So if you compare three conditions, isolated cortisol deficiency, isolated aldosterone deficiency, and combined deficiency, isolated cortisol deficiency is the mildest. Only mild hyponatremia, 120 or something maximum, and normal potassium because aldosterone is normal. Aldosterone, potassium may go up to 9, 10, 11 also. Sodium will be normal. And very importantly, when you talk about the third aspect that we discussed was with regards to the combined effect, the sodium will be very low. I have seen up to 97 are the lowest and potassium can go high. So this first picture, if that report is correct, it is against the diagnosis of an isolated RAS defect, which puts a question on starting on fluticasone in this setting. So again, that's a doubtful thing. Which other historical thing will tell you that this is not a RAS defect?
Polyuria is not there.
Polyuria may be difficult. A very, very classical finding, you only said that.
So of a pH, like you need.
He had something which the mother said.
Sort of weight loss and pigmentation.
He was pigmented. So he was pigmented, cannot be a RAS defect. So this is not 11 aldosterone synthase defect. This is not PHA. This is combined defect. If at all is anything, this is a combined adrenocortical insufficiency, neither central nor aldosterone. Very clear. Severe hyponatremia, hyperkalemia, pigmentation, diagnosis is done. Now this cortisol most likely be after hydrocort. That is the most likely explanation. Now if you go further, they did the 17 OHP on day 41, which was very high.
Yes, sir.
So again, there is a confusion which is going on in this perspective. Now what happens later?
So 17 OHP was done, but again, to a surprise, steroids were not started despite this, probably because cortisol they considered was normal. Then on the same treatment of fluticort, potassium came to be slightly lower side. So this is all done outside. So when we reevaluated this child, this is at 4 months when he came to us, initial reports showed normal electrolytes, that is sodium and potassium were normal. Now over here, we got a report of low cortisol of just 41.68. And now to rule out whether it is central or primary adrenal insufficiency, ACTH was done, but this somehow came inappropriately normal or rather slightly raised.
So what would you expect the ACTH level to somebody who has got low cortisol sign?
More than 200.
300, 200 to 300. 300 picogram per ml should have been there. It is 74. So this goes a bit against a primary adrenal abnormality. But why? What can be an explanation, Prateek, here?
So that's what's he was probably on fluticort. So as we know, fluticort 100 mcg has around 1.5 mg effect of hydrocortisone. So that was probably suppressing the ACTH increase
to certain extent.
And to rule out other things, basically to rule out Smith-Lemli-Opitz, we did a total cholesterol which came normal. And just to rule out any central cause, we did a FT4 also, which was absolutely normal. So now we were in a fix whether what is this. So next report, now we have low cortisol levels. 17 OHP is pending. So just before that, to rule out an AHC, we got an ultrasound of the abdomen, and what we actually expected, adrenal glands were not visualized. Now we have a child who has adrenal insufficiency, who has slightly raised SPL, and then cortisol deficiency, and adrenal not showing visualized, which at this age is highly sensitive of the adrenal.
So we would have expected the increased phallic size can happen in 21 hydroxylase. It's because the androgens are high. That's pretty much maybe there, but not to that extent, but it may be high. If it is poorly controlled, let's put it this way. But adrenal gland should have been visualized. So again, this is a soft sign, but this is a sign nonetheless. So now, if you combine adrenocortical deficiency with no adrenals identified and a macrophallus, one possibility is DAX1 defect, which is theoretically there. You cannot explain that high 17 OHP, but we are really doubting all the reports that we have found because till now the management has been a bit confusing.
And then to increase our confusion, 17 OHP came high in the 21 hydroxylase salt wasting levels of 38 nanogram per ml.
So so they are not that in the salt wasting level, but they are
in the high levels.
And probably because of fluid report. So now, again, as I discussed, this is a confusing case. Now, this case, what we are seeing is that this is a classical 21 hydroxylase presentation, day 21 of life, sudden shock basically with pigmentation, hyponatremia, hyperkalemia. 99 out of 100 will be 21 hydroxylase deficiency. There was a lot of confusion with the reports and the way the child was managed. But now, what do you think, Proteek?
So we are in a fix. I would say the next step is to get a panel NGS.
Yeah, but now DAX becomes a bit unlikely because if you have DAX and you have no adrenals, where is the 17 OHP coming from? So I would still go back towards 21 hydroxylase as a possibility. But yes, we have to think of some other forms as well, which may explain this sort of a thing, which is there because his salt wasting is not. See, we don't know the first report, how it was done, what was done, but with fludrocortisone, he was doing fine in that situation.
So that's what in favor of CH, we have a salt wasting episode of 21 days, hyperpigmentation, raised 17 OHP. And again, CH, yes, of course, poorly controlled can have penile length large. Adrenal glands not visualized, that is one thing against, and inappropriate normal ACTH, but of course, which can be explained by fludrocortisone. So our next further plan, we have started on glucocorticoid and melanocorticoid supplementation, and the next step is to do genetic studies.
So I think that was an interesting case. Again, a bit of confusion was there, but this is how clinical practice is. What I talked in the initial 20 minutes or so to highlight, that is a simplistic approach, but always clinical practice will be more complicated and you need to evolve. The key message is don't get fixated just with diagnosis, that this is this diagnosis, that diagnosis. Start appropriate treatment and correct the basic problems. Parents have not come to you just to make a diagnosis. They have come to you to basically ensure that the things are normal and you can gradually make a subsequent diagnosis. So this will be a candidate to go ahead and do a panel, a targeted panel, which will give you answer a lot of questions with